Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Micah. Today we are going to be talking about grungy eyeshadow palettes. This is still part of my August eyeshadow palette extravaganza here on my channel. I am posting a new video about eyeshadow palettes whenever I upload, with an extra video going live on Saturday. So I hope you've already seen lots of these. I still have a couple more coming your way, and we're going to be ending the month with an eyeshadow palette collection. So let me just tell you that I really also like grungy color stories, and that's what this video is going to be all about. So I hope you're excited for this one, and let's just get cracking. I've got 10 palettes for you here today, and some of these I think are quite obvious, whereas other ones I think maybe a little less obvious, or they are just less talked about. So let's start with the obvious ones first. And when we talk about grungy eyeshadow palettes, I think the cream of the crop is of course going to be the Subculture by ABH. This may be difficult to find by now because this seems to have been discontinued. However, you can still find this on the European Anastasia website, and I think they ship internationally, so I think they still do the prism and the sultry and all that jazz. So it sometimes pays off to check out an official website, because then you might still be able to find something. This was, of course, a very polarizing palette because of the quality of these shadows. Not everybody liked the quality because these are more like pressed pigments, and they seem to be quite powdery, and people had lots of issues with fallout and things like that. I definitely got mine a little bit later, and what I've heard is that this palette was reformulated because of the controversy. So I think mine is one of the more newer formulated ones, which means that mine didn't have those issues. Yes, there are still a couple of shades in here that are a bit more problematic to work with, such as Axis. That one can just, like, once it's there, it's difficult to blend out, you could say. So this is a otherwise very lovely, grungy color story that works really well on my brown eyes. I do have a few gripes with this palette. I don't like the matte to shimmer ratio that you get in here. I prefer using this palette, doing like an all matte look, and then putting something like a multi-chrome from an indie brand all over the lid, because I feel that this goes really well with those like very stunning shifty shades. And this is grungy because while this is still colorful, it does have more of like a brownish gray undertone. And I also tried the Makeup Revolution dupe of this, which a lot of people were saying was a great alternative, and I personally feel that that isn't the best because it has a very gray undertone. These colors are richer, they just look more true to color on the eye. I know some people had issues with the mustard sort of like turning like darker on their face. I personally don't have that issue, but it could very well be that that's because I double prime my lids, and I have been doing that for years because I have more like deep set / hooded eyes. So if I don't do that, my eyeshadow just creases. And I think that that can be like one of the reasons why these shadows just work for me quite well. I have to say that my least favorite in here would be Adorn, but I love this electric shade, and the teal and the green are stunning. These two mustards are stunning. Rowdy makes for a really stunning liner. Every look I do with this is amazing, and yeah, it's just a great grungy palette. If you're looking for something grungy, then this is probably your best bet, still, till this day. However, I think the brand that is top of the list for me when it comes to different, more grungy color stories would be Melt Cosmetics. I have the Gemini and the Muerte. I also have the Smoke Sessions, but I think that these two are definitely the palettes that are more on the grungy side. I also have a couple of their stacks, which I also love. They just do really nice eyeshadow quality, I think. So the Gemini is, I think, the ultimate grungy palette. You can still get this. Again, this has had some controversy with the shadows not lasting very long in the packaging. Like, their expiration date seems to be quite short, so I'm not sure. I only got this quite recently, so mine are still okay. I have had no issues with it. If you're interested in looking into that, Beauty News did a very extensive video on that, so where they sort of break apart the palette and they show that there's like rust in these pans. Again, could be something that's been resolved, because that seems to have been the case for some of the palettes in the earlier batches, but I only got this at the start of the year, so it might very well be that mine is okay because of that. So you get some neutrals here, which are again those like baby poop brownie kind of shades. And then you get these really stunning, very rich greens. And I think that that combination of mustard and greens and teals, like what the Subculture has to offer, is like the ultimate grungy eye to me. And you'll see in a minute, I've got a couple of other options that can sort of give you that. However, I think that another stunning grungy option by Melt is their by now sadly discontinued Muerte palette, because this was apparently limited edition. Did anybody know that this was going to be limited edition? I didn't. I picked this up straight away when it launched, and I hardly ever do that with eyeshadow palettes because I always want to first hear people talking about it before I decide. But when I spotted this color story, I was like, this is so unique, so different from anything that I have, and it instantly spoke to me because you get these greens and then these like teals going into like royal navies, and then this stunning navy shimmer that I just love. And then you have these like wine colors. I thought it was going to be too red, but it turns out it's this like almost like blood red wine, like rich burgundy shades. It's really interesting, and I think that these burgundies together with something like this like really blackened navy called Pantheon, like that just makes for a really stunning grungy sort of look. So that's what I really appreciate about the Muerte palette. It's just a really stunning palette. The packaging is great, and look at the coloration of the palette as well. Like these are the colors you get inside this palette. It's genius. And then we're moving into sort of palettes that I think less people talk about when it comes to grungy things. And this next palette is a rainbow palette. And then you might think, Micah, great grungy palette, but rainbow at the same time? How does that work? Well, LA Splash does the classic horror palette, and you just need to see this packaging. I keep raving about this palette and nobody seems to mention it. Oh, it's upside down. But look at the packaging of this. You get all these like zombie ladies all across the palette. So if you're someone like me who enjoys really good packaging, like it's slim, it's sleek, and still you get a really stunning design to the palette. And then it has this holographic sort of thing in the middle. And yes, this looks very bright in the pan. But once you put these on your eyes, you will find that all of these shades have like a certain depth to it that I haven't found other rainbow palettes to have. So these are murkier shades. There's definitely still bright, but especially like something this like, again, blood red kind of shade. And then you have this black to deepen things up. But this green isn't that green on the lid. It has something a little bit more muted almost to it. So I actually, now that I'm filming this video, I'm thinking like, hey, what if I were to pair these two together? What would happen then? So some of these brighter shades with some of these murky greens and mustards from the Subculture, I think that can be a really, really interesting combination. But I just feel that these shades are very deceiving because it looks like a bright rainbow in the pan. But then when you put it on, it has this yummy depth to it. So if you are looking for brights, but that are a bit more on the grungy side, I would recommend the LA Splash Classic Horror. Then we have the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe Dark Magic palette. Out of the 4 palettes from the vault, this has to be my favorite. I know a lot of people, again, had issues with a lot of the shades in the vault. Mine was absolutely fine. I had no issues with it, but they also happen to be the only Morphe eyeshadows I've ever tried. Morphe is just not a brand that I'm super interested in, even though that, what's it called, Boss Lady palette, with the greens and the purples, that looks stunning. That's something I might want to get at some point, but I think by now you can no longer get it. I can never keep track of Morphe. But yeah, this is more of a cool tone color story, and I think if you want more grungy looks, that cool tones can be very helpful with that. Again, here you get this like really nice murky green, you get this really nice like teal shade, a forest green shimmer, 2 different kinds of like taupe shimmers. This is just a really, really stunning grungy eyeshadow palette. Like everything you do with this, it's not like just a standard smoky eye, you know what I mean? It's not something like I'm wearing today, which is more like just a cool tone smoky eye, because this has the the colors to it, I feel you can do more with it, and it's more like grungy, colorful, but still muted and wearable for every day. You can turn this into a smoky eye if you'd like to, but you definitely don't have to go to smoky route if you don't want to. And then we've got 5 eyeshadow palettes that I don't think I've ever heard people mention in line with them being grungy, but something that's quite grungy on me can be like reddish warm tones, and I love my Huda Beauty Desert Dusk for that sort of thing. This does have a couple of like more neutral shades, but I definitely feel that like these reddish tones at the bottom combined with the purples is what gives this its grungy look and feel on my complexion. Because I'm quite fair and I have a neutral undertone, I can get away with this, but it does sort of make for a very particular look that on me looks a little bit more grungy. I think if you have a warm undertone in your skin, and especially if you have a much deeper complexion than me, then this probably just feels like a boring neutral. But on my complexion, these shades just kind of pull a bit more grungy, and it is stunning for that reason. So what I would say is a better alternative to the Melt Gemini than the one that everybody's been recommending, which would be the Kaleidos Sci-Fi Greens, which is the Futurism 1 palette. There's a reason why that palette is not in today's video. You might have expected it if you know that I own that, because I already own the Melt Gemini, and I feel that that is better than the Kaleidos, like much better. The Kaleidos just has a couple of golds that I'm not too fussed about. So what I would actually recommend, if you would like to get the vibes of Melt Gemini, I'm not saying it's a dupe, but you want to go for that mustardy green sort of thing, I would go with Juvia's Place, the Nomad. And this is a palette by Juvia's Place that I don't hear a lot of people talking about this for some reason. And I don't know why, because this has really, really stunning shades. It's more on the grungy side of things. You get like mustardy yellow shades, you get cocky greens, you get the perfect baby poo brown color for your crease, something to deepen it up. Ooh, I'm sticking my finger in the shimmer. And then these two shimmers are really nice too. So it's definitely not the same as the Melt Gemini, because I feel those greens are a lot more vibrant, which is why I feel it's very unique, and why, for instance, the Sci-Fi Greens doesn't live up to it, because instead of getting all of these gorgeous green shimmers, or those greens that really sort of play well together and make for a really nice grungy green look, I feel the Sci-Fi Green doesn't really deliver that, but this does. It's not as vibrant as the Melt Gemini, but I do really like this. A palette that you can no longer get, because this was limited edition, and I'm not a big fan of limited edition makeup, but when I spotted that Decay was doing this, the After Dark palette, I knew I wanted to get it. And another thing, like I mentioned with the Dark Magic, cool tones can be grungy. Jewel tones can be easily made into a very grungy look as well. And this is one of my favorite jewel toned eyeshadow palettes, which is why I wanted to show it here. However, you can easily find shades like this in Juvia's Place palettes, in other palettes. I just feel that this is my one-stop shop. And I don't have that many palettes that truly have this many jewel tones all in one palette. So you get your like copper and your bronze and your like brownie shade. This shimmer right here, this is all shimmer by the way, which is probably why nobody ever talks about this. But this shimmer right here is like, it's got a white but then a golden flip to it. This is like a peach shade with a golden flip. And then you get these 5 shades on the bottom, and that's really where it's at for me. This shade features Fringe. And when this came out, I believe it was sort of like marketed as like the deeper version of the Electric palette, because this was released I think like a year or 2 later. This is quite old actually. And the only shade that ever appealed to me in the Electric palette was Fringe, because it's a teal. But this one also gives you a really nice navy. Lounge, which is like Decay's version of Max Blue Brown, so this is another duochrome. And then we have Backfire and Druggy, which are like really nice purples. So shimmering jewel tones. Again, this palette together with the Subculture gives me the shimmers that I would like to have in the Subculture, you could say. So these are 2 really, really stunning palettes that can go really well together. And jewel tones are, again, in the fall winter time, they are some of my favorite shades to wear. And then a very affordable option that I wanted to feature here that I think it's not a fully grungy eyeshadow palette, I feel, but that can give you grungy looks. Elf's Earth and Ocean. Because I was thinking, like, why do I like this palette so much? But mainly because this, like, entire top row, like, again, a baby poop brown color. This brown has a little bit more of a green to it. And then you get this, like, brighter green shimmer and this more, like, khaki shade as well. It's really, really stunning. Pair it with some of these taupes, and you sort of get the same thing that you get in the Nomad or in the Gemini. So for me, this works, but you also get some blues in here that don't necessarily make it very grungy. However, this teal over here, together with something like this, like grayish blue, those are really stunning to, again, also make for more of a grungy look. So this can be very neutral if you'd like to. It can be very blue, it can be very green, but if you pair the right shades together in this palette, you can very easily turn it into a very grungy eye. And then last but not least, this is an indie makeup palette that a lot of people were talking about when around the time that I decided to buy this. And it's the Misha Lou Cosmetics Witchcraft palette. I don't hear anybody talking about this anymore, but if you want grungy, it doesn't get any more perfect than this, you guys. It's quite warm toned because you get a lot of these like warm tones over here, and also like this purpley shade is quite warm toned. But then you get these really stunning greens. So this is like if Huda Beauty does her Dusk and Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture had a baby, this would be it. It also has a couple of really stunning shimmers, especially this magic shade over here. It's magic on the lid. It for sure is. This is just yummy, really murky, swampy almost colors. I can't describe it in any other way, so that's why I had to give this a mention. However, I've heard some shady things about this brand. I'm not exactly sure what it was about, but I've just heard, and that may be the reason why nobody's talking about this anymore. But I do have this palette in my collection, and I think if you're looking for grunginess, then this is another really good one that I think more people should be talking about. Those would be the 10 grungy eyeshadow palettes that I wanted to feature in today's video. Some of these you can still get. You can't get everything anymore, I do have to say. However, you can very easily find those kind of shades in other palettes, I feel. And the Subculture, for instance, if you can no longer get it, then definitely check out the official Anastasia website because they tend to have a lot in stock over there. So thank you very much for watching this video today. I really hope you enjoyed it and that you have been enjoying all of the other eyeshadow palette content that I have been and will be doing in the rest of this month. So I really hope you enjoyed watching it. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I usually make 3 videos a week, so I've got lots more content coming your way. So stay tuned for the next one. Bye bye!